French President Macron opposes the establishment of a NATO office in Tokyo. He believes that the organization should first take care of its own backyard. I must say, I would like to ask Mr. Macron, the grass in your own backyard is waist high, why don't you trim it first? Yes, NATO wants to set up an office in Japan, and Macron had a "we need to talk" expression, saying, I think we should first focus on the security issues in the North Atlantic, and then we can discuss this Japan matter. Can you imagine that scene? NATO is like an enthusiastic traveler, holding their luggage and saying, I want to go to Japan. I want to go to Tokyo. And then Macron, like a stern parent, says, come back and take care of your own affairs first. But NATO people are the type who, once they set a goal, they won't change it. You know that type of person, right? They would say, no, I am going to Japan. You know what? I've already booked my ticket online, I've bought duty-free candies for the kids, and I've prepared a selfie stick. After hearing all this, Macron says, listen, if you insist on going to Japan, you are making a big mistake. Wow, this sounds like a line from a suspense movie. We can imagine Macron wearing a trench coat, smoking a cigar, and saying, you've made a big mistake. Moreover, Macron seems to be somewhat sensitive about NATO establishing an office in Japan, as if he believes it would be seen as provocation by China, just like wearing a bikini to Iceland. He is concerned that Europe's image in China might be damaged, which is as inappropriate as wearing leather pants in a tropical rainforest. Actually, I want to tell Macron, take it easy, you know, sometimes it's not entirely a bad thing to let someone go to Japan. Look at Japan, it's the world's largest hub for animation, their sushi and ramen are beloved cuisines worldwide, and their hot springs can help people relax. If NATO were to establish an office there, maybe they could not only address security issues but also experience Japanese culture, eat some sushi, admire cherry blossoms, and take a few selfies. Macron, why don't you give it a try too? Perhaps you'll discover that Japan is actually quite nice. Overall, I feel like this is a global, territorial battle. Everyone is using their pieces to try to control this global chessboard. I can only say that it's the geopolitical version of Game of Thrones. Let's look forward to the next move and hope that the pieces don't get lost. Recently, US President Biden gave an interview to CNN, and when asked about Ukraine joining NATO, he said, I think during the current war, NATO has not reached a consensus on whether to admit Ukraine as a member. I have to ask, Biden, what kind of team spirit is this? It's like everyone is ready to go dancing, and suddenly someone says, hey, wait a minute, that DJ is a bit off, should we have him play some soothing music first? That DJ is Ukraine, and the soothing music is the need for the war to end. Biden then says, I believe we must find a reasonable path for Ukraine to qualify for NATO. Yes, you heard it right, his solution is to find a reasonable path for Ukraine. It's as if we're using a GPS navigation system, where you just input, Ukraine joining NATO, and the best route appears. But unfortunately, in real life, navigation doesn't have an option to avoid war zones. Let's look at another decision made by Biden. The White House announced on the 7th that the US will send cluster munitions to Ukraine for the first time. Biden called it a difficult decision. This reminds me of those people in supermarkets who hesitate while choosing fruits, touching an apple and being unsure. Imagine Biden standing in front of an arsenal, touching the cluster munitions and saying, this one should work. But, what about this one? That's our president, someone who, in a crucial moment, sends a special gift to Ukraine. The world today is truly filled with suspense and humor. Today, you may be Ukraine, fighting against a powerful neighboring country. Tomorrow, you may receive a large shipment of special gifts from the United States. And who knows what will happen the day after tomorrow? You might find yourself at a NATO welcome party, sipping champagne, discussing with Biden how to avoid the next war zone. I'm sure you've all heard the big news recently, Mark Zuckerberg has launched a new social media app called Threads. You might be thinking, how many times has he tried to imitate someone else's product? Haha. The European Space Agency recently mocked Zuckerberg on social media, saying, do you want to start building rockets now? It seems they have become immune to Zuckerberg's imitation syndrome. Their post garnered nearly 4,000 likes within 24 hours, it seems I'm not the only one finding Zuckerberg's innovation strategy amusing. However, if Zuckerberg were to start building rockets, who would he imitate first? I think we all know the answer, don't we? Yes, it's that guy who sent a sports car into space in his self-driving electric car, Elon Musk. Well, speaking of imitation, Zuckerberg might also think, why imitate just one billionaire? Let's make it bigger and have Jeff Bezos and Richard Branson join in too. Just imagine, Zuckerberg on a rocket launch pad, wearing a VR headset, holding Instagram filters in his hand, shouting, 3, 2, 1, we're going to space. Haha, I can't even imagine what that would look like. And can you imagine what he would do once the rocket takes off? He might install a giant speaker on the rocket and play the Facebook notification sound throughout the entire journey, ding ding ding. Lastly, he might shout to the Earth, did you forget to like me on Threads? Hee, that would certainly be a very amusing space trip. Speaking of Mark Zuckerberg, I heard he's been playing a new game called The King of Double Standards. Let me tell you, he has spent $40 million on personal security in the past 3 years. Did you know that his security team is large enough to fill a small football stadium? Of course, this includes his family's security as well. I can only imagine his house must be equipped with everything, even his electric car probably has bulletproof armor. It's quite enviable. However, on the other hand, his foundation is actively supporting organizations that advocate for defunding or abolishing the police. Yes, you heard that right. It's Zuckerberg, whose security team could fill a small hill, financially supporting activities to defund the police. They have donated to PolicyLink, an organization that advocates for reducing the number of community police and promoting an alternative vision of public safety. What exactly is this alternative vision? They don't specifically say, but I guess it might be to have a security team like Zuckerberg for everyone. He has also donated to Solidaire, an organization dedicated to abolishing the police. I would even ask him if I can join his personal security team. After all, in their view, police cannot protect our safety or prevent crime. Then I wonder, if Zuckerberg's house were to be robbed, would he call PolicyLink or Solidaire instead of the police? That would be quite amusing. Russia invades Ukraine for 500 days, Zelensky speaks on Snake Island. On the 8th, it marked the 500th day of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. On that day, Ukrainian President Zelensky visited Snake Island to express gratitude to the Ukrainian military, armed forces, and the Ukrainian people for their contributions to defending the country. He stated that as we stand on Snake Island today, it will never be conquered by invaders, just like other parts of Ukraine, because we are a brave nation. During the early stages of the war, the defenders of Snake Island gained fame for their courageous resistance against the Russian forces. Belarusian tennis player Victoria Azarenka and Ukrainian player Elena Svitolina had a fierce match at the Wimbledon tennis tournament, but Azarenka lost and was booed by the Wimbledon crowd. Azarenka called it unfair. Kremlin spokesperson Peskov stated on Monday that Putin and Prigozhin had a 3-hour meeting on June 29. On June 24, the Wagner Group led by Prigozhin approached Moscow, but the coup ended in failure. U.S. President Biden kicked off his 4-day European trip on Monday with a meeting with British Prime Minister Boris Johnson and King Charles III. This was Biden's first face-to-face meeting with King Charles III since his coronation. According to the U.S. Central Command, a drone strike carried out in the Al-Bab region of Syria on the 7th eliminated the leader of the extremist armed group Islamic State, in the eastern part of Syria, Usama Mahmoud al-Muhajir. Earlier that day, Russian military aircraft hindered the operation for about 2 hours. Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte announced his departure from politics after the coalition government collapsed, following differences in immigration policy. He will not seek a 5th term after the elections in November. The opposition party will present a motion of no confidence against Prime Minister Rutte in Parliament following the collapse of the ruling coalition last week. The Olympic Council of Asia, OCA, has approved the participation of up to 500 athletes from Russia and Belarus in the 19th Asian Games to be held in Hangzhou, China in September. The decision was made during the OCA General Assembly held in Bangkok, Thailand. South Korean lawmakers criticized the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, for approving Japan's discharge of treated nuclear wastewater, calling it a bad precedent. On the 9th, opposition lawmakers from South Korea met with IAEA Director General Rafael Mariano Grossi, who stated that the IAEA's review of Japan's plan for the discharge of treated nuclear wastewater was based on transparency and science. He acknowledged the concerns and opposition of the Korean people regarding the Fukushima wastewater discharge but emphasized that the focus should be on the North Korean nuclear issue rather than Fukushima. However, lawmakers criticized the review for overlooking the long-term environmental and health impacts of the discharge plan, and the possibility of setting a bad precedent or encouraging other countries to dump nuclear waste into the oceans. Activists in Indonesia, the world's largest nickel producer, have warned that mining is threatening the livelihoods of local communities. More and more food and beverage businesses in Singapore are adopting locally sourced ingredients, and the number of farms has increased from 221 in 2019 to 257 last year. With the volatile international situation and unpredictable climate change, the mastery of critical survival products and technologies by small countries significantly impacts their resilience. As more people are willing to invest in agriculture, the 30-30 vision becomes not just a goal but a ceiling to break through. After Levi Strauss & Company, the iconic denim clothing manufacturer, lowered its earnings forecast for the full year on July 6, the company's stock plummeted by 7.7% immediately last Friday. The performance report also reflects the cost increases caused by factors such as inflation, which have hit its profit margins, and the company is now facing a decline in wholesale channel sales. For the past 2 months, stocks of investment firms under legendary investor Carl Icahn have plummeted under bearish attacks. After months of negotiations with creditors, Icahn now hopes to turn the page on this event and limit losses in the future when under attack. The bull run in the U.S. stock market has helped fund investors achieve good returns so far this year. According to data from Lipper, U.S. stock funds rose an average of 6% in the second quarter. U.S. stock funds rose an average of 6% in the second quarter, and have achieved a year-to-date return of 12.4%. Vietnam welcomes an economic boom. Vietnam has become a major beneficiary as manufacturers diversify away from the risks posed by China. It emerged as the fastest-growing economy in Asia last year, but it must be cautious not to fall into the middle-income trap. The trendiest clothes in Africa are the ones you don't want. Second-hand clothing from Europe has created a thriving market in Africa, but it harms the interests of local producers. Europe is planning to require manufacturers to take responsibility for recycling or disposing of discarded garments, which has raised concerns about the second-hand trade in Kenya. You don't need to spend a lot of time and money to burn more calories. By incorporating activities like carrying weights, climbing hills, and increasing speed during walking, you can intensify your workout without significant expenses. Check out the most budget-friendly exercise guide. Hello everyone, I'm your news anchor, Yali. We provide a one-stop service for global news here every day. Feel free to leave comments in the comment section, we read them carefully and respond to your comments. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. See you next time, take care, everyone.